Drivin Ivan here, and behind me a 2005 Maserati Spyder. And I have driven just about every Maserati Spyder out there. The newer GranSport, I drove a coupe, so I really know these cars. 6-speed manual, Cambio Corsa like this one, and I'm going to tell you why I chose this one. I'm going to tell you about the upgrades on this one. I'm going to show you how to drive the Cambio Corsa transmission, and I'm going to tell you why it's not as bad as everybody says it is. And you're also going to find out if I made the right decision, and I'm impressed. Let's find out. Well, purely on aesthetics, it's easy to see why I wanted one of these cars. It's just beautiful, and the coupe is an inch longer, and so it just kind of looks awkward in this area. I'll show you a picture here. See it? A little bit awkward, but this Spyder looks really, really incredible with the top up or with the top down. Now, all of the Maserati Spyders got facelifts in 2004, and this one in particular has the vintage package, which is supposed to look like a Maserati 3500. So it's got the larger grille here, and it's got this little beauty right here, which is reminiscent of that early car. And also there's some stuff inside which I will show you, and I'll discuss more about that vintage package later. But it's got these nice Maserati emblems right here, and it's just all it can be with the vintage package, I think. This one also has the larger 19-inch Maserati alloy wheels as well. It also has some modifications, including the exhaust, fab speed in this case, but more on that later. So there you go, just to my eye, a fantastic looking GT convertible, Grand Touring convertible, Spyder in this case, and I just love the looks. Everybody knows I love blue cars. If you watch my channel, if I choose a car myself, it's usually blue. You can Google what does Drivin Ivan drive, or Drivin Ivan in any car to see my review of that one. But let's take a look inside now. You've got the Maserati right on the sill here. 3 memory settings on the seat. If it was heated, that would be the control there. Power controls, of course, for the seat. And the seats are bolstered, but not like crazy big side bolsters or anything like that. It's a GT car. Certainly sporty, but it's also made for comfort to be a good compromise. The famous Maserati Neptune Trident there on the seat. So cool, with the matching hoops. That's an option. And also the matching tonneau cover. So definitely options. You could get, I think, up to 18 interior choices and 10 exterior colors, I believe. So a lot of choice with this Maserati. Blue piping on down with the tan and the blue, and you've got some storage in the door there, and on down through the dash you've got the glove box, which I will open so you can see. It has controls for your gas and also your trunk, and you can lock it too, of course, which is definitely necessary in a convertible. Airplane style vents here, and of course that classy analog Maserati clock, which is just a beautiful vintage piece. And here on the center you've got the transmission here. This is new. Now these suffered from what's called sticky buttons. These I would call in pretty good shape concerning the other ones I've seen. They get to be that kind of 2000s, early 2000s yucky sticky buttons like they had in Ferraris and Porsches. And I would call these okay, like I said. But window controls here. This is for your transmission. If you're in rough weather, it'll start you in higher gear smoothly. Auto mode there. Forward is first. Pull up and back is reverse. And then your buttons for sport here. This one does have the sky hook. More on that later. And then lights, fog lights, defroster, things like that. This is your traction control here, which, yes, you can cancel in this, which is awesome. And then you have the infotainment screen, which at the time was extraordinarily advanced. You could control navigation in your phone and things like that. So at the time, it was very, very advanced. Now for the vintage package, you get, I believe, these blue gauges here are part of that. So look at these awesome blue gauges. And of course, I'll show you how they look at night later. And the paddle shifters on the steering wheel, down on the left, up on the right. That beautiful blue key, and even Maserati engraved there on the pedals with a dead pedal on your left. A great feature there too. In the center here, a real handbrake, and you can collapse your mirrors outside or adjust them here. That's the control for the convertible top. Look at that awesome Maserati cup holder. And then in here, the charger and a coin holder actually. So that sort of dates the car, but pretty cool. Armrest / a bit of storage here. Leftover extra controls there for the rear window defroster for the back glass, which is glass in this one and not plastic like the earlier ones. That was one of the upgrades in 2004 for these Spyders. More lockable storage back here, pretty cool. And so there you have it, the nice and refined and very stylish and classy Maserati Spyder interior. Love it. Pop the trunk and you can see that it's got plenty of storage for your road trip and your special someone to come along with you too. Really nice. You see the light there, lights up, and it's probably a little bigger than you think it would be. It's got some extras, the Maserati toolkit, and I do have books for this one too, and some records, which I'll talk about later, important ones. These cars can be tricky to own, so think about that, but I chose this particular one for many reasons, and I'll get to those in a bit. Alright, let's start it up, and you can hear the exhaust, and I'll tell you about the engine too. The Ferrari-based 4.2-liter V8 includes dry sump lubrication and 4 valves per cylinder. It produces 390 horsepower at 7,000 RPMs and 333 pound-feet of torque at 4,500 RPMs. And because of the rear-mounted transaxle, weight distribution is 48 front and 52 rear. Plus, of course, they've put the engine as low as they can for better handling. 0 to 60 takes 4.7 seconds, the quarter mile 13.3, and the top speed of 176 miles per hour. You were out the dealer door back then around $90,000 with fuel economy at 10 in the city, 15 on the highway, and 12 overall, of course, with premium fuel. But you don't really care about the MPGs, do you? So I drove a lot of Maseratis before buying this one. I drove a few Spyders and even the GranSport Coupe, which was good. Now the GranSport is a step up in many ways. What they did is they kind of reworked the Cambio Corsa a bit, but they got rid of the cup holder, and to me just a little bit of livability of the car in a sense. It's a fresh look, but this one basically has that same fresh look with the vintage package. And in terms of manual or Cambio Corsa, I drove a manual Spyder, and it was lovely. A little quirky with the kind of bulge sticking out the side of the shifter, and it is certainly not a Ferrari H-Gate. And so to me, having driven the Ferrari H-Gate and having many manual transmission cars, I just didn't see for me that it was worth it, because obviously the manuals go for a lot more money. So to me, this one that I ended up with is the best of all worlds. It's got a fresher look, it's got the desirable upgrades, great exhaust, and I like the simplicity of just being able to drive the car. And everybody talks about the auto mode being terrible in this, but it's not. It's actually really good, I think, if it's maintained. This one has a new clutch, basically just a couple thousand miles old maybe, and so it's fresher than many of them out there. And I think people get a hold of these things and review them when they already have problems, and so there are problems. but if you're looking for a manual and you want this Spyder in a manual or the coupe, go for it. Now you can't get it as a manual in GranSport trim from 2005, so that's something to consider too. Now to me, the Maserati Spyder is really a Ferrari for a fifth of the price. Let me explain. I really feel this. You know, you have cars like the Portofino and the California and even the new Roma, and that's pretty much the brand new Ferrari formula for their cars, is a front engine V8, and so that's what you got here, convertible. And it's almost like the classic Ferraris in the Grand Touring sense, except there's not a 12-cylinder engine up front, but a very attractive Giugiaro designed body and 2 seats, nice sporty, luxurious interior, and really, I think it's a complete package and very similar to new Ferraris, and still harkens back to the days of classic Ferraris. You have to remember, Maserati has much more racing history than Ferrari. This company started in, I believe, the mid-20s, 1926, by brothers. One of them was creative and chose the downtown statue of Neptune for the crest that is still around today. It's so familiar. And then they went racing, basically. That's all they did. They didn't even build road cars until the 40s. And so they have all that racing history with wins in 1939 and 1940 in Indianapolis. The first Italian car maker to win there, way back in history. And you know, that's even way before Ferrari was in business. So if you think about Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, Maserati, Lancia, well, there's a huge history with all of them, and Lancia and Maserati go back, and you know, Alfa Romeo's pretty far back too, but you know, Ferrari, well, he was a driver for Alfa Romeo. He came later, and he could not build cars right away with his deal with Alfa Romeo, so he had to wait. That's why you don't see Ferrari on the scene until 1948. But my point being, this Maserati comes with a lot of prestigious racing history attached to it, and it also comes with a heck of a lot of history and a heck of a lot of style and a lot of speed too. Plus, it's a convertible. So running through a quick list of the problems, it has that thing that Tavares's Maserati Coupe had, where the oil pressure and the oil level light just basically blink all the time, making you think that you're going to be on the side of the road any moment. But it's just basically a connection that's loose. And then it has a code for, I think one of the shocks is not responding the way it should with the skyhook suspension. And that basically checks each shock like 41 times a second. So there must be something there with one of the shocks, but it seems to function okay. And then also there is the P0431 code, which is basically a catalyst warm-up, downstream oxygen sensor not working or something like that. So no mechanical problems, and it does have a new clutch with receipt, so that's a good thing, but just basically some minor cosmetics to make it more of a show car. But right now I'm just enjoying driving. Okay, here's the night look in the Maserati Spyder. Green glow and a blue glow on the clock. Very cool. But yeah, I like the vintage package blue gauges during the day, but it looks pretty good at night, especially for a car of this vintage. And I've actually been driving it in the rain for the first time, so the Maserati stability program, or whatever they call it, is quite good. No slipping, the road is wet right now, and had a little hydroplaning at one point when it was raining harder, but nothing major, and it seems to track very true, and definitely sticky even in the rain, so that's a good thing with a rear-wheel drive car with a heck of a lot of power. I saw the traction control kick in a couple times. That's good, that's what you want, so Good stuff. Also of note, I stopped for gas again, and with all highway driving, I got 19.54 miles per gallon. Almost 20 miles per gallon. That's almost unheard of in a Maserati Spyder. I was impressed with that. That big, powerful V8. Yeah. Kind of efficient, too. So I would estimate your overall cruising range at about 276 to 414 miles, depending. Not too shabby. Okay, so here's the sound of the car with the air conditioning up and cruising along in 6th gear. And there are some vibrations and such. I think the top needs to be replaced. And I'm getting a little sound from the analog clock, too. But if the top was replaced, I think it would be a lot more quiet overall. But it's really the presence. You know, Maserati makes a statement. That trident on the grille just looks cool, and it's special. It stands out. I think sort of like Alfa Romeo in a way, but Maserati is more exotic, and I think they give a run for their money to both Lamborghini and Ferrari, and of course Alfa too. I love Italian cars. Check out my review of my Lancia Delta Integrale elsewhere on YouTube. Okay, here's how to start up and drive the Maserati Cambio Corsa. Are you ready? Well, you got that pretty blue key in, so start her on up. Okay, looking ahead, you're in neutral. You're also in auto. May as well drive it that way the first time. So auto, press here. And this is for bad weather right here, so it'll start in higher gear to prevent slippage. But neutral, so there's two ways to engage first gear. One is to push this forward, or you can press the up. Okay, and now we are in one, and you can just drive off. It'll shift nice and smoothly for you. Second gear, third gear, eventually. Stays in second because we're headed for a stoplight. Automatically back down into first. So you don't have to put it into neutral or anything. However, what I like to do is if I am going at a faster rate of speed, like say right now, I'll get it up to, let's see if I can get up to at least third gear. Okay, third gear, but then perhaps there's a stoplight in front of me. So what you do to put it in neutral, pull both of these back, and then you're in neutral. And I like to coast to the light. Now, interestingly, if you're coasting, then you can go ahead and press up, and there you go. I'm in third gear again. It put me right back into third gear. So I'll double click, I'll be back in neutral, and I'll wait, and I'll coast to a stop. Now, why am I doing that? I coast to a stop sign, or a stoplight, or any other stop, by being in neutral. In that way, you preserve the clutch. It's all about preserving the clutch. I drive a manual transmission car that way. If I'm in 6 speed coming off the highway, clutch in neutral, and then I coast, because you don't want to downshift, downshift, downshift. That just puts more wear and tear on the clutch. Now, a lot of people say that you want to just mash the throttle and don't lift when you're changing gear in sport mode, especially in this car, and that's fine. That's recommended by Maserati. So you don't have to lift. Mash the throttle, full throttle, and then upshift. If you're in automatic mode, it'll do it for you. So actually you can just watch what the car does in that automatic mode, and then that's what you should do to mimic it. And that is, just stay hard on the throttle. Don't lift. Let the computer do what it's doing. It shifts faster than Formula One drivers, so it's doing it right. Don't worry. Now you engage reverse by lifting up and pulling back. And there you go. R for reverse. Now some people say to keep it in sport mode all the time, but I disagree with that. You put it in sport mode when you're driving the twisties, when you want the most out of it, and when you want the most aggressive shifting patterns. And that also, with the skyhook suspension, will stiffen up the chassis and make sure that you get the least amount of body roll and the best handling characteristics. But, you know, when tooling around town like I am today, I don't see any reason to use the Sport. And it shifts plenty quick enough and takes the corners well enough and handles the bumps a little smoother in this mode. So usually I'm driving in auto with the Sport off. But of course, when the twisties beckon... Look, I found the only twisty road in Florida. It's pretty cool, huh? Not too shabby. This is kind of crazy. You never see roads like this in Florida. Check this out. What do you think of that Fab Speed exhaust? Is that something? Man. Yeah, it's pretty good, huh? All right, here we go. Water's pretty flat with the skyhook. Oh, listen to that exhaust. I think the Cambio Corsa gets a bad rap because a lot of them have clutches that just aren't working and they're not engaging properly. But listen to that. Listen to the sounds it just throws out. Look at that, professional downshifts here. I mean, that's pretty darn quick and pretty impressive too. Now, of course, the Fab Speed exhaust here helps and accentuates the sound, but even the standard Maserati Spyders sound really, really nice. Okay, Cambio Corsa haters. What we have here is really a fine transmission, even in auto. Not in sport mode. Checking out the night look here, but here it downshifts 2 gears there, blips the throttle and matches it, and it's pretty darn fast. Not in sport mode. I think it's really all in the way you drive this car. Well, now it's time for the true reliability test of this Maserati Spyder. I've bought it and I've driven it about 900 miles around the sunny state of Florida, and now it's got 900 more to go or so to get to its new home up north. So I've learned a lot about the car in that amount of time. And, well, so far, so good, I would say. They're just blinking away here. But, like you saw with Tavares's Maserati Coupe, the kind of boy racer one there, it was doing the same thing. The oil level is actually fine. And again, that's very important to me. This one is not perfect cosmetically, but it is the color combination I wanted. And I was more concerned really with the mechanicals, and has had the recent clutch service, major service, and tires are good, and so it's in good shape overall. Certainly not a Concours car. Speaking of Concours, I just went to the Amelia Island Concours, so watch my one-take review of the Amelia Island Concours. It's about an hour and a half long, but it's in 2 parts too. Check that out on YouTube. Very cool video. Cool cars there. Even a Maserati at the Amelia this year, so that was nice. But when I was driving it into the Amelia Island Concours, there was a Ferrari in front of me, And I have to say, this Maserati Spyder with its Fab Speed exhaust really sounded better than the Ferrari. And I don't think that's biased at all. You just have to hear it. So there you go, with the amazing sound of the engine and exhaust, the Ferrari-sourced engine, the beautiful Giugiaro design, the Spyder roadster nature of this car. I've got to say, I am definitely in love with it, and I think it's better than the Ferrari because, again, the money that I spent on this car is not even in the same zip code that it would take to get a Ferrari. Now, Ferraris are Ferraris, and they will always be Ferraris. The culture that surrounds Ferrari is just amazing. My Amelia Island video starts with a family dressed in Ferrari apparel. The love of Ferrari is certainly an all-encompassing thing, but I'm someone who runs from the herd and lines and the mainstream, and I've got to say, yes, Ferraris are great, the history is there, but Maserati has a much longer history. From 1926, that's over 20 years more history, and it started with racing. So Maserati is definitely an unmistakable brand, and for the money that I spent on this Maserati Spyder, I mean, you would have to spend a minimum of 5-6 times the amount to get to a Ferrari that certainly would not have an H-gate shifter if it's in the modern era like this one. And with the F1 shifting, you know, it's, I don't know why you'd want the Ferrari if you're a practical person, because, like I said, this one is so much more affordable. And I think pound for pound, dollar for dollar, and smiles for miles, it's extremely hard to beat a V8 Ferrari-sourced Maserati from the early 2000s. That would be Maserati Spyder, the Coupe, the GranSport Spyder. Amazing automotive bargains. So what should you pay for a Maserati Spyder or a Coupe or the GranSport? Well, I think most of the Spyders I saw were listed at about $19,900 to $29,900. There was one listed for like $60,000. Don't pay that. I mean, maybe if it's a museum piece and a manual. But again, I have driven the manual, and yes, it's good. But I think that it's not as special as the Ferrari H-gate, so I see less of a bargain if you really want the manual in these. This is all about the Cambio Corsa. It's what makes it quirky. It's what makes it special. If you can get one cheap and you have some money set aside, or you know what you're doing mechanically, sure. Like the one that was featured with Tavares on that card track video. You know, I think he paid $5,000 for that and then put the crazy wrap on it. So, you know, by the time he was done with it, you probably had 10, 12,000 in it, and you can, you know, spend, you know, start at that 19.9 and negotiate your way down or whatever, and I think you'd be better off because those cars are going to come with records and things like that. Again, if you're mechanically inclined, doesn't matter, but you can watch and read the forums like I've been doing and getting advice from people, because some stuff in a new car that you're not familiar with, you just don't know about, and it's great to have the help of the online Maserati people. Thank you to them for letting me know about some things I was concerned with this car. The coupes are going to be a little less, of course. I don't like the shape as much. I think the C-pillar is a little awkward. There's just too much space there. Sorry, Giugiaro, but the Spyder looks better to me. I just love the look of the Spyder. Being about 8 inches shorter, it shows. And so I drove a GranSport, and you can't get those any other way than with the Cambio Corsa. But that was nice. You lose the cup holder, which kind of sucks, but I'm sure they've invented ways to get that back in, and then you have slightly easier controls for the first and reverse and that sort of thing in your modes. They're a little bit more straightforward. Again, I think the later cars And if you look at the new Maserati Gran Turismo Spyder and that sort of thing, they're bigger. You know, you just can't help but to notice. They're nice looking cars. They're obviously going to be a little quicker. They're newer, but they're not so much quicker that to me it makes a difference. But I was able to turn the traction control off in a GranSport, and it was a lot of fun. Honestly, this one with the Fab Speed exhaust and the drive-by-wire system installed on the ECU, I think it's certainly as quick, if not quicker, than the later GranSports. But it was really nice, the GranSport, and it handled very well. So I think they are a slight improvement. So if you want the ultimate, get the GranSport Spyder, or get one like this that's had all the upgrades. Coupe 2, of course, you can get those same upgrades for those. They're mechanically the same. So that's about it in terms of purchasing and what you should pay. Of course, the more history on the car, the more you know about it, the fewer owners, the better it was cared for, are all very important. And if you're unsure, well, go ahead and buy the car, but just get everything done. Certainly change the fluids and that sort of thing, and go through the car. Get a pre-purchase inspection if you can. It might be money very well spent. So really, the way I'm using this Maserati Spyder in Florida, just driving to the beach, up north to the Concours, and down to another beach, just seeing the sights. That's grand touring. That's what this car really is. It's GT. It's made to be, of course, quick and handle very, very well, but also be comfortable. The car was pretty darn advanced for its day. You could have the key basically match up with all of your settings. There's 3 keys for the car, 1 valet, and so you can have a his and hers key, and all the settings will be there. There's memory for the seats. You could get heated seats and navigation and Bluetooth and power everything. So for its day, it was certainly very advanced, and I was so happy that I finally realized the dream of having one of these. The response you get from this car, I mean, it's everybody seems to love it, whereas they might resent a Ferrari a little bit. A lot of people, it doesn't matter how old they are, young they are, I mean, driving this car around Florida, people notice it, and it's always compliments. I had a couple who was walking through the neighborhood, and I was just kind of driving it slowly, checking it out a little bit. I just gotten it, and they just turned around and stared, and they were like, wow, that's a beautiful car. And that's what you get a lot, beautiful car. And so I think this one brings you back to the days, you know, the vintage package, right? Late 50s Maserati design, style, speed, and elegance that also really stands out from the rest of the crowd. There's nothing else really like this on the road. There's just something about it, and I love it. I hope you've learned a lot about buying a Maserati from the 2002 to 2007 era. I hope that you'll Google Drivin Ivan in any car. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and like, subscribe, share. Like I said, comment on my videos. Check out my disc golf videos, one of which I shot down here in Florida. And this trip, there's many from Florida. I've played a lot of courses in Florida, so check those out. And of course up north too. Check out my music videos, especially my Free Your Mind music video, original song, and a lot of my car collections in that. You can Google what does Drivin Ivan drive, and like I said, just Google Drivin Ivan in any car. Thanks for watching. I'm Drivin Ivan.